Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. Delighted to welcome you to another new series. In one respect, it is what we're going to call the Friday Night Lights. Certainly for the summer. I'm delighted to be joined by a new face to the channel. You might have seen his first video the other day, which was very, very interesting. Although he disagreed with me a lot, so no, I'm not so sure about that. But I am delighted to be joined by Pan. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, thanks, Si, for having on. Yeah, lovely to be on, and great to do the first show the other day. Looking forward to doing hopefully a weekly slot on a Friday and discussing all things Cardiff City. Might do a couple of videos on Wales as well because I'm a massive Wales football fan as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, loads coming up.
That's the way we tend to do a bit on Wales in the in the international breaks and stuff, and we did a few watch-alongs and stuff like that, and we'll do like some previews and stuff just to keep everything ticking along nicely. Obviously, there's not a great deal to talk about in terms of day-to-day news and stuff which is going on, so we're going to talk predominantly about our sort of nostalgia and our own memories of kind of growing up and watching the city. But before we get to that, I suppose we should talk about the general situation. Still no announcement on Errol Bullock. I think, and you might disagree, and the people might disagree as well. I think it's pretty clear that he's staying. I think it's just, for whatever reason, it's taken a bit of time. It was interesting to me that they've started to make some backroom appointments. They signed an analyst from Cheltenham Town, which one of the things which Bullock had been sort of in his negotiations, apart from money and budget and things like this. One of the things that he had said about was the football side and the structure behind the scenes. So it's interesting to me that even though they haven't announced him, they're bringing in kind of backroom staff, because really you wouldn't bring in backroom staff without a manager. But I don't know, where do you stand on that?
Well, the thing is, that's the problem, isn't it? We don't know, and my view is, after Bullock's first season, I think he did reasonably well under the circumstances. I mean, if we look back the season before, we were lucky enough to stay up. Yes, we were getting excited up until Christmas. We were in a very good position, way above what we thought we would be at that stage of the season. After the Leeds game, the first game was away, one of the first games away, bowler and all that kind of stuff, and getting excited. So Ramsey was injured, a lot of things as well have gone against him. And I think he brought in Siopis and he brought in Gutas. Now, any City fan will tell you Gutas is one of our better players. Siopis, again, played really well up until Christmas. So you can't fault him for bringing in those two players. He obviously has got a good understanding of what bringing players are going to improve the side. Then he's had to work with other players like Callum Robinson, Romeo, whatever. They haven't followed his way of working, I don't think. Rightly or wrongly, he's a coach. He is supposed to get the best out of players, but the players have got to do their bit as well. So I hope Bullock, does sign. I'm just absolutely flabbergasted at the moment, Si, about how slow we are. I mean, it's absolutely crazy to think that we're in June tomorrow. It's the last day today for the early bird offer for season tickets. And I had a look on there today, and I might be mistaken, but there was a lot of empty seats in the Canton. And I'm thinking this year we could have our lowest season ticket sales. And I can't understand it. I mean, Tan must have all this information. I just don't get it, Si, in terms of the fact that here we are in June tomorrow, no manager, season ticket sales are down. What the heck is going on? And I just think we're in a mess. And I get about the backroom team, in terms of recruitment, all well and good. But we want to know who our manager's going to be. And I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, I think it's so there's two sides to it for me. Like, there's obviously one side is concerning, because I've done a couple of videos on like the free transfers that are available. There's some really good free transfers, and some people, like you, just disagreed on what's his name? Forgot his name.
Jordan James.
Obviously Jordan James will cost money, but in terms of free transfers, obviously their contracts run out, sort of mid to late June, and there's a good handful. I would say there's probably at least maybe 15 to 20 players on that list, which are leaving championship clubs that would improve Cardiff's squad somewhat, whether it's the first 11 or the squad overall, which are free transfers. However, that 15 to 20 who are like the better options, if you like, of the free transfers, they will also be gone by the first week of July, because the clubs are already working and speaking to their agents, saying, your contract's up here, do you want to come? And it's like, if you haven't got a manager in place, and because we have no football structure above the manager, there's nobody working on those deals, because Mehmet Dalman and the board have been working on the manager, trying to get that contract over with the owner. So there's nobody working towards these transfers. The scouts might be doing a bit, and the one analyst we've got might be doing a bit. But like ultimately, there's nobody working on these deals. There's nobody speaking to the agents of the free transfers or even paid transfers. And I think that's a massive issue. Now, in terms of the season ticket side of it, I agree with you. It's shambolic, because just from a business point of view and how you look at things, and you want to obviously maximize your season tickets, your merchandise, the rest of it. It's obviously the other side of it. It's the 125th anniversary for the football club this year. So there should be like a massive thing. There should be video packages everywhere. And I know there's been a couple, but it should be almost non-stop promotion. But it's not. And I think that shows that there's a disconnect between the top of the football club, if you like, the owner, and what the plan is, if there's a plan, and then the commercial side, the people who are putting it out. And I think I've personally, and this is only my opinion, I think a big problem, two of the biggest problems with it is, number one, Julian Jenkins is no longer at the football club. Obviously, hasn't been there for a couple of years now. He was a massive part of being the go-between between sort of the club, the fans, and the owner, and advising on that sort of thing. So he would have been probably one of the people, at least, who would have been saying to Vincent Tan or saying to the board, look, season tickets are down at the moment. We need to do something. And I would think, unlike last year when you had Aaron Ramsey come in, rumours of Gareth Bale, you're not going to have that sort of big name transfer to drag in the last minute season ticket, or maybe the season ticket holders who were on the fence, because realistically, we're not going to go and sign like a big name like that. And even if we were somehow to pull off the long shot, which I've talked about in Jordan James, which I understand is a massive long shot, like he's probably well out of our price range in terms of fees and the rest of it. But
not going to happen. Sorry, not going to happen.
No. I understand that. And I said before, it's like it's a bit tongue in cheek, but it is also, we should be ambitious to be looking. At the end of the day, he's at a League One club. We should at least ask the question and find out. But on that, even if we were to get him, as good a player as he would be for Cardiff for his age and his quality and everything, he isn't Aaron Ramsey or Gareth Bale that's going to bring in an extra couple of hundred season tickets. And I think,
but let's look back though with Aaron. Sorry, I was going to say Aaron Ramsey. Why we signed him in the first place is crazy. Let's get it right. Great player. Made his debut at City. I saw him when he made his debut. He's a class above anything else. One of the best 17, 18-year-olds I've ever seen, or one of the best top two midfielders I've seen down the City. So there's no question about Aaron Ramsey, the player. Amazing career. Euro 2016, one of the players of the tournament, okay? But his injury record throughout his career has been horrendous. And for us to sign a guy who realistically was only going to play 15 to 20 games, never mind about the kudos. I mean, fans aren't stupid. A name is all well and good, but we didn't really. I mean, I personally thought it was a big mistake even before he signed. And he's proved right. Other fans might have thought differently. It was worth the risk. But that's how we look at things. Transfers. We've just got the players we go for. Turnbull's another example. I know you like him. I'm not saying, he's going to be an awful signing. But I've only seen 15%, what I call 20% good games from him so far. Okay, he may not be playing in the right position, but that's £2 million. I'm just looking at it. There is a head of recruitment, and I slightly disagree with you. I do believe there are people in the background discussing transfers and things, because managers, you know, in our history, a manager stays at Cardiff City for 15 months, right? So they've got to have something in the background to say, we're going to sign a player for 4 years. In that time, we could have 3 managers, you know, so we've got to be looking at the recruitment side of it and saying they've got to be doing their bit. But what I agree with you on, which is absolutely ridiculous, if I was to really, you know, look at Cody Drama, if the head of recruitment for City comes in and say, oh, look, we want to sign you, we're going to pay 15 grand, 20 grand a week, he's on a free, he might go, yeah, I liked it at Cardiff, the fans like me, blah, blah, blah. But there's no manager at the moment. You're telling me the manager's going to sign, I'm going to wait. Now, how long do you wait? Like you said, it could be 2 or 3 weeks. In that time, 5 clubs are coming for him, offered him a little bit more money maybe, and he thought, I'm not waiting, I can't afford to risk it. That's the kind of thing that it just drives me insane that we're in this situation.
Well, let's not forget as well, Leeds are now in the Championship. Like everybody thought, the Leeds probably included, thought they were going to be in the Premier League next year. So they may reassess whether they want to keep Cody Dramer. They may offer him a new contract or whatever. So you've got that side of it as well. The other problem with it is if, say, the head of recruitment, right, goes to the football club now and says, right, we need to get Cody Dramer and we need to try and sign Kipre before he goes elsewhere, blah, blah, blah. They've got a love for the football club. They might be difficult deals, but we think we can get it over the line. The problem is you've got a chairman who, look, I don't think Mehmet Dalman is as bad as some people do, but I understand why people think what they do, if that makes sense. However, he's a non-executive chairman. So even if the head of recruitment comes to him and says, look, I've got Cody Dramer ready to go, he's going to sign, even though we haven't got a manager, Mehmet Dalman can't okay it fully. He's still got to go from the board to the owner, and that's after this goes through this transfer committee of the board members. The manager's supposed to be part of that. So how can you straight away? There's an issue because if you haven't got a manager, you can't okay that signing because that's the transfer committee. And then if it does,
I think again, Simon, I think a lot of players do sign for clubs without the manager's okay. I think we miss out the fact that the manager might identify players he knows, like for example, Bullet in Turkey, in Germany, or whatever. But the fact is, the like you said, they got a head of recruitment. There is a board there, and they'll go to Tan and say, like, you know, this guy, you know, he's played for us before. You know, he's on a free. Okay, his wages are this. I don't think that's an issue. But the key issue for me on that is, as a player, you're not going to want to sign. You know, and it just drives me insane that the fact that we are in this position. I honestly don't think everyone's renewed their season ticket. I honestly don't. I think 25%, you know, 25% of fans are just thought, I've had enough. You know, the football in the last second half of the season wasn't great. You know, and Tan's still there. I mean, you know as well as I do that Tan, obviously, he wants us to get back in the Premier. He wants to get his money back. He's got this insurance going through. He's got money coming in there. There's fair play involved, you know, in terms of what we can spend. But, you know, I don't know about you, but as a fan of City, we've, you know, and I'm of the old vintage of 1980 of getting 5,000. My first game I watched was against Orient in front of 5,000 fans. So, you know, a lot of the younger fans don't know what it's like to be in what is now League Two or League One, which we were in for a number of years. So, you know, older fans realise that we are in a much better position than where we were many years ago, getting 1,500 crowds, you know, and things like that. But even saying that, you know, we've the last, how long we've been in the Championship? The last 15, 20 years between the Premier League and that. So, you know, we have got higher expectations. I think we can be a very big club, and you know, we have got a potential to be in the Premier League and stay there. But we've been so badly run, it's untrue. And look at Brentford, look at Luton, look at Fulham, look at Brighton, right? They've got everything 100% right in terms of their transfers. They brought in hundreds of millions of pounds. They brought their recruitment has been fantastic. Most of them are in the Premier League. Most of them have really good squads. Why can't I think we're bigger than all of them? You know, and we can't. We've been like this for years. We've had Trollope, we've had Harris, we've had Morrison. Some of these managers, like, you know, it just Slade. You know, it's been a catalogue. It's been a catalogue of disasters, side.
Yeah,
and you know,
this is the problem when there's no football people making those appointments. There's nobody with any football knowledge making those appointments. Not
exactly.
one person.
It's not going to change it. And like I said, Tan behind the scenes is desperately, you know, he's had some interest obviously in the club. I think that's a known fact. But I think West Brom went for about 60 odd million, and you know, I don't know what valuations. I mean, some of the fans can come on and say, what is our value? You know, because I know obviously they're trying to negotiate with the Premier League about getting an increase in money revenue on top of the solidarity payments. But I know the club's value has supposedly gone up to over 100 million. But, you know, have we got a lot of value in our squad? You know, McGuinness, Colwell, NG. Is there a lot of value? And some of these youngsters, I mean, you know, obviously, years ago, you see, in the old fourth division, which was the second division, League Two now, you get a young player 18 and you play him in League Two and he'd be all right. But the problem is the Championship is obviously a much higher level. So it's really hard for like a Joe Bagan, for example, came in, started really well, drifted off. You mean, and how many players, you know, Kings played midfield, went to Crewe. You know, we've had other players come and go. Isaac Davis, you know, I think he's, you know, he had Burnley came in for 1.5 million for him, I think, and he just went to pieces. He's gone on loan to a second division club in Belgium, and everyone's going, oh, you know, he could be the real deal, but it's the second division of Belgium. And, you know, let's hope if he comes back, because I do like the guy, you know, but I think a lot of our younger players, and I'd say Colwell, Ruben Colwell, I would say he's the one lad who I really didn't like up until the last few months. And I've got to be honest and say that he has improved a lot. And I think the last dozen or so games, he has really come on. So I'm hoping that, you know, he'll be in the first team in the new season because, you know, as I said, we've had so little account of the academy players come through as well. It's shocking. And as you discussed before, Conte on the right was absolutely quality in those 3 games. First touch, movement, everything. I know that's not his normal position for the younger team he plays for in the academy, but, you know, he looked a natural right back. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are a couple of real diamonds in there. But, you know, we are in a really, I don't know. It's a mess, you know. And as a fan, I mean, look at the betting as well. What are we rated at 20th out of 24 in the betting for the new season? Doesn't surprise me.
But that'll change with as transfers happen. That'll sort of go up and down, won't it? I mean, the one thing a few things to kind of dig into there. First thing I'll start with, right? Aaron Ramsey. I do disagree with you. I think we should have signed him, but what we should have done is they should have realised, or Bullet should have realised. I think you have to hold the manager accountable for certain things, and I think he didn't use Ruben Colwell earlier in the season when he should have, because in the EFL Cup, Ruben Colwell was tearing it up. He's getting assists and goals. I would argue with anyone, you know, whether you think he's the finished article or not, I agree he's not. But what I would say with Ruben Colwell is every time he's in the side, Cardiff City look better. We looked more functional going forward. The problem he had is he had 2 wingers who wanted to cut inside and close his space, and he didn't have a number 9 and out. He didn't have a striker all season to play with, to create for. And I think he suffered from that. But I thought he had a very good season. But the reason why I was okay with Ramsey coming in, and I said this at the start of the season, and I'm much like you on Ruben Colwell. At the start of last season, I think I did a whole video on it saying, like, basically, he needs to speak to someone at the club and be assured that when Ramsey doesn't play, because we all knew Ramsey was only going to play probably 20 games. So he should have got assurances from the club that when Ramsey's not playing, he's going to be the main man for that position. And then that would have been okay because you've got a young, exciting player, but then you've also got a experienced, quality midfielder who, unfortunately, his career's been ruined by a serious leg break. But I think it was worth
but
it.
Why sign Turnbull though, Si?
Well, this is an interesting one because I believe, and it's only my opinion, with maybe a few whispers, shall we say, it's my opinion that Turnbull was a board signing rather than a bullet signing. Now, because I don't know if you've seen, but the day we signed Mark Turnbull, or the day after, I did a show, and I was so excited. I'm not a very happy man most of the time. I'm very sort of grumpy and whatever, but I was really excited when we signed him because I've seen quite a lot of him in Scotland. He's a quality footballer from a technical point of view, but all his best performances for everybody have come as a number 8. And I just looked at it and I thought that I felt that the reason for Siopis' dip in form was because he was trying to do everything in the midfield. He was trying to be the passer. He was trying to be the destroyer. He was trying to take it off the centre backs, but he was also trying to create, and he was just too much. Whereas whenever at the start of the season and at the end of the season, he just concentrated on being the defensive midfielder, I thought he was very good. So I was excited by Turnbull and Siopis with then Ramsey or Colwell in front. That excited me because I thought finally we've got a midfielder who can play through the lines, but also go and receive the ball like on 1-2s. Because the one difference I think between him and Joe Rawls is Turnbull, when he did play in the 8, which was very rare, I think it was about half an hour in total, he would play it into Colwell or he'd play it into the winger, and then he'd go to get the return pass. Whereas Rawls can play through the lines, but he's a bit more like he'll sit and he'll just kind of sit there, which is all right if you're defending. But I think you need a progressive midfielder who's going to be a bit more athletic. But yeah, I agree. Going back to Turnbull, I think Turnbull was and obviously Jeju were signings that the board made rather than Bullet saying, I want that guy, which is a problem because a manager's got to be involved in the selection of personnel. Otherwise, he's never going to be fully on board with them from a selection point of view. So, I know a lot of football clubs have a director of football and they work with that sort of, you tell us what the manager tells us what position he wants, and then the director of football or the technical director will go and give him 3 options or whatever. I think it can work, and I've been saying we do need some type of football structure, but that's more on a basis of we need people who know football making football decisions like selecting managers, transfers, etc., not businessmen, which is one issue. On your point about the kind of the value of the club and potential sale, the biggest obstacle for me, because I completely agree with you, Cardiff City should now, in 2024, be an established Premier League club. They should be, mid-table Premier League club, established, capital of Wales, the infrastructure in the city, the new stadium, blah, blah, it's all in place. The problem is, say the club is valued at, say 75, 100 million, whatever. Whoever comes in to buy it also has to pay off the debt to Vincent Tan, which I think when we worked it out recently was about 250 million, like when you add it all up and what he's lost and what he's still putting in and all these kind of different forecasts. It's a lot of money, and that puts off any buyer straight away, which is why I said the other week that in order for the only way Vincent Tan gets his money back is if he sells this like a super, super rich, like some of these Premier League clubs, or he makes us an established Premier League club. The only way to establish us as a Premier League club is to get the football decisions right. And if he is making those football decisions with the current setup, it's never going to happen. We exchange manager, every 15 months? We can't even appoint a manager at the moment, let alone sign players. It's very poorly run, considering when you take into account that this football club, this owner, desperately needs to establish itself as first of all, going for promotion and then establishing itself as a Premier League club. You'd think that the owner would be getting advice from experts, and then he would bring in experts in their field. but
Yeah.
for whatever reason, he's not doing that, and I think it's an issue, mate. It is an issue.
Yeah, he's taken his eye off it. I mean, I know he's lost a lot of money, and you know, we were lucky to have Tan originally, you know, and I don't like to knock a guy who's put a lot of money into a club, because it's easy for us, you know, to talk about go and sign him, go and sign that person when it's not your money, you know. I think we need to think about that as well. But at the same time, I think what you mentioned in an earlier program was about what could work is someone coming in who will actually buy a percentage of the club.
Yes.
And they will actually take over the day-to-day running of the football club in terms of, you know, and I wanted to do some shows as well about the atmosphere down the city, which I'm going to do on Fridays and stuff. And I've got a lot of ideas around, I won't discuss that, but, you know, we need someone who, we've got Vince down, who does a hell of a good job down the city with, you know, the supporters. And, you know, I don't know Vince personally, but I know he's done a hell of a lot, you know, and he's City through and through. But I think we've got an actual fans engagement officer down the city. And, you know, there's so much more we can do, side down the club. You know, it's not just enough just turning up and, you know, we still got the red seats up there, and there's so much more engagement, you know, with fans. And I think what I'm going to discuss in another show is, you know, look at the clubs around the UK and look at the atmosphere in some of the home grounds. Now, I know a lot of fans who will only go away because of the atmosphere, but the atmosphere down the city has been horrendous. I know it's not just the supporters, because they need something to cheer, you know. And if you're losing 10 games at home, it's not easy, and the style of football as well. But I think we're really losing every season that goes by. More fans, you know, there's lack of engagement and everything. So this, like I said, there's so much to do, but I do think the way forward is for Tan to hopefully sell the share of the club, and then we can get, you know, some real, I don't know, like I say, director of football we discussed, but it's got to be someone in there who really engages with the fans on a daily basis, because, you know, Tan's over there, Dalman and Joe, you know, as far as obviously they're puppets. I'm not saying that they're not good businessmen, you know, they don't do their job well for what they're paid for, but
they got their hands tied.
They got their hands tied, side. So it's a tough one.
Yeah, I think in terms of just very quickly on the atmosphere, like I think most people have said from day one, the biggest issue with that stadium is that the most vocal part of the Cardiff City support is at the opposite end to the away fans. And I understand when the stadium was first built, they wanted to be sure there was no trouble and blah, blah, blah. I get those reasons, but those reasons do not apply anymore. Like, because you still have police at the games.
Yeah.
There's very little trouble, if any. Like, there's no excuse to not have the away fans next to the most vocal support. That's how you create an atmosphere, because the fans go back and forth with chanting and singing. But the fact is, the Canton stand can barely hear the away fans, and the away fans can barely hear the Cardiff fans. So it's just never going to be that back and forth, and the atmosphere has suffered for it massively.
Well, you're right.
Look at Wales games, mate. Look at Wales games. Look at the atmosphere created there.
Yeah, I think Wales games are, you know, are fantastic in terms of all the family. It's great to see the kids. It's great to see the you know, the amount of women who go to the Wales games as well. But you're right, absolutely right about that side of it with the Canton. I mean, you got 118 in the Ninian, which should be utilised. You know, that should be a singing area, and you're right next to the away fans. But I feel people there's a fine line between volatility, intimidating atmosphere, and violence. Okay, so when you've got to have banter, at football. There's certain words and certain things I agree you can't say now. My God, in the 70s and 80s, you know, it was crazy. And we wouldn't get any women going. Well, you get the odd one with the Burberry scarf, but you wouldn't get many going. So, you know, football's changed a lot in 30 years in terms of families going to games, the whole thing about, you know, buying food, pre-match, half-time, all that kind of stuff, entertainment for the kids, you know, great. But the atmosphere at home has to be intimidating for the away. Now, how many away teams are coming to our ground and they're thinking it's like, like the away fans saying, it's like a library. There's nothing for the players of the opposition to feel intimidated about. Obviously, I'm old school, and obviously Ninian Park through and through. I know it's 16 years ago. And I'm just saying that was intimidating for away fans and players of the opposition. We were 7,000 City fans in Ninian Park would way outsing 20,000 down Cardiff City Stadium. But I'm not trying to say that we are where we are, so there's nothing going back. The stadium, I've been to a lot of games down there. Wolves at home, the Jacks. The atmosphere's been on it. I mean, for the Jacks game, we got nearly 30,000 in, and it's really good, But we need more. We need 25,000 week in, week out. We are one of the worst teams in the Championship in terms of attendances to capacity. In terms of percentages of the stadium full, and I appreciate we had an extra 5,000, 6,000 seats when we had the Super Cup here. I think obviously the red seats, as they are known, where we were 27,000 originally. So obviously, but for a city like Cardiff, with a catchment area of 1.5 million, we should be filling it. Look at your Norwiches. Look at these sides. They're full. So it's a real problem for me. I just don't think we do enough behind the scenes with supporters and new fans. There's so many things we can do, but yeah, I just think at the moment it's not a good vibe down the city, and I just hope now in the next week something positive gets announced. But I am skeptical. I would have thought, and I don't know why, if I own the football club, obviously I want as many people signed up as soon as I can to a season ticket. So I'm going to get that manager signed up. If I know it's in, it's going to happen, if you sort of dotting the I, crossing the T's, surely we could get it over the line 2 or 3 days ago, maybe the beginning of the week. And then we would have had maybe an uplift in season tickets, to get that kind of like 12, 15,000. And then, Bullock could have said in a press conference, right, I've had assurances now from the board that we're going to get the players I want. Obviously, NG, like you discussed before, could be sold. We've got to bring in some revenue. So if it is, I don't know, 3 to 5 million, say if he does go, we're going to need that money, obviously to buy players. But as you said, there's a few free transfers that Keeper and Cody absolute must. We should be doing everything. But I know they're more defensive. And obviously, our problem is midfield and wing and striker. But
we need those defensive signings, though, don't we? As well?
Exactly right, Si. So and look at Illich. You're talking about the manager didn't want the guy. I can't pronounce his name. He was at Bristol City.
Jeju.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, he wasn't his signing because he wanted Illich. We did it, and dallied. We didn't get it over the line. And as a result, we ended up with him. And look at it. Look at all. I mean, Akbo, a lot of fans around me hated the guy. Said he's useless. I thought he was okay to a level when he got a few goals. He's been proven at Sheffield Wednesday he can get a few goals, in certain positions, heading the ball, for example, especially around the 6-yard box. But every striker we've had last year has failed. Atete, they're all the same. There's not one guy we've had up front for a long time who we can say he's going to. And it's not about having a striker that's going to get you 15 goals. It doesn't necessarily matter. If you've got 3 midfielders and a defender like Morrison, remember Sean Morrison in defence, he'd bang you in 8 or 9 goals. So your striker doesn't have to get 20. He can have 12, 14, and you've got 3 midfielders banging in 6 or 7. So, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be this 20-goal striker, because obviously everyone's crying out for a 20-goal that's going to cost you millions. And unless you're going to bring someone in, obviously your recruitment is really, and your scouting is so good. And you've got some guy from Nigeria coming in no one's ever heard of, and he's going to set the world on fire. You know, I mean, I'm not saying it's an easy job, scouting. I'm not saying it's an easy job, but so many other clubs, like I've mentioned before, Mickey Mouse clubs, in my view, Brentford, Luton, you know, have got it working. You know, and I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And maybe this recruitment thing, you know, the lads at Cheltenham, he's come from Cheltenham. I'm not saying, you know, because he's Cheltenham, he can't be much. But, you know, maybe they're building a team in the recruitment team to get it right, you know, in terms of getting out there, seeing more players. So, you know, I think Tam knows. After he got stung about Cornelius a few years ago, as you remember, we signed him for £8 million. He didn't seem to get, Tam, that we were in the Premier League. We had a lot of successful signings. Obviously, Murphy, you know, was a dud. 11 million quid. Cornelius was a disaster because when he went back to, I don't know what he was it Copenhagen or something? He went back near enough on a free, you know, because he got injured. And Tan at that point, because Moody, I think, was in charge of recruitment with, I don't know if it was Malky, I can't remember. But
it was Malky and Moody.
It was. And the thing is, he thought to himself, hang on a second, I got this guy in who's supposed to be the knowledge for signing, and now I've signed a guy for nearly 10 million quid who he thinks is a dud. And, you know, Tan looks at and didn't do much for us, like in the short time he was there. He should have given a bit more time, without question. But since that moment, Tan's philosophy, mentality has completely changed. He's thinking to himself, there's no way I'm going to leave any signing of a player worth a few quid to anyone but me. So he's sitting in his office in Kuala Lumpur or whatever, you know, and he's thinking, right, I've got all the stats on this player. I've got him over there, recruitment telling me this. I've got Mehmet telling me this. I've got blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to have the final say, which I understand. But he's just thinking, oh, that's 5 million quid. I mean, I'm not going to risk it. And I was actually a little bit surprised that he signed Turnbull, you know, because I thought, you know, like 2 million quid. But I think his whole mentality has changed. So I get about the fact that you want to bring young players through. You want to bring Cardiff fans, want to see local lads play for their team. You know, we haven't had many. Blakey was from Newport. Ramsey was from Caerphilly. You know, these were top players for us years ago. Ledley was a good player for us. But, you know, as many players I could name in the 80s, Badley, you know, and Lee Badley and players like that, Gareth Abraham, defenders, they were local lads, but they were bang average. Do you mean they wouldn't have survived in this day and age? But they did get opportunities because we were in the old 4th division, you know, or the old 3rd division. So, you know, it's not as if we've got a massive history of bringing through youth. But, you know, Ernie obviously went on loan to Morton, I think, and he come back and he was unbelievable, you know. But we haven't had many of them. And I just hope, like someone like Ruben Colwell, who I've slated in the past, not slated is the wrong word, but I didn't really like in terms of, I thought he's a tall lad. He can't head the ball. He doesn't score enough. He scored a worldly against Bristol City, as Tanner did against Swansea. But they're two young players, but they haven't moved on. But then I would say, like I said, Colwell in the last few months has definitely showed. I've sat up and thought he's looking for a first team. He should be getting a first team place now. He deserves a crack. I saw him for Wales under-21s against Lithuania down in Newport. He was the best player by a country mile. His level is way above that. But under-21s against Championship, obviously, is completely different. But I think, you know, he needs to toughen up a bit. I think he needs to toughen up. I'd have him in the boxing ring. I'd have him doing a bit of gym work in the boxing ring, getting tougher, you know, in terms of the tactical. I know he's in that number 10 role where you know, you're doing his skills, amazing ball control, amazing close skills he's got. You know, so he's got a lot of talent. Scored a goal for Wales, I think, you know, against either South Korea or something down Cardiff Stadium. So he can score goals. So I just hope he can be our shining light moving forward, you know, because we need more players like that. And like we said about Conte as well. But I mean, what's the situation side with Collins as well, the left back? Is he out of contract? Because I think he's out.
He was out of contract this year, but they activated. They had a 1 year option on him, so he's got another year now.
He's got another year.
Yeah. So just I want to quickly touch on something you said, which I completely agree with, about goals coming from elsewhere with the striker. And this is where I think, again, Bullet has to take a bit of responsibility, because I think, yes, in the system we play, your wingers have got to kind of drop in and give the fullbacks a bit of protection. But they don't need to always be right next to the fullbacks. They can just fill a hole. And also, I would like to have seen him say to Ruben Colwell towards the end of the season, when he was our best at attacking or creative outlet, is give him a bit of freedom to just not worry too much about defending. Because at the end of the day, yes, you defend from the front and you defend as a team and you make yourself compact. At the end of the day, Ruben Colwell is not in there to defend. He is in there to create and to cause havoc on the ball. And I think I would like to see him get a bit more freedom, because then I think you'll see more assists, more goals from him. Also, I want to see some bloody wingers who stay wide. But on the young players, it's really interesting to me, right? Because so at the moment, we've got Conte, who, in my opinion, did enough in his small appearances that he should be one of the 4 fullback options going forward this year. You also have Keane Ashford, who I think has made himself one of the 4 wing options, which you would like to have. Joel Colwell is like one of the most highly rated midfielders at that age in the whole championship. And then you've obviously got Ruben, and then you've got, Tanner and these guys. So there's a group, and there's also a couple of others like Antwi and 1 or 2 others, obviously Louis Giles as well. So that group of sort of 5 or 6 young players, they should be part of the first team this year. However, my concern is, because we've got no money, and because the owner is what he is, and because we're taking so long over the manager, is we're going to depend on these young players. Like, first game of the season, they're all going to be starting. And that concerns me, because that's so much pressure on those young players. But also, Cardiff City fans, some of them are not. I'd like to think that, young local players, academy players, will get all the time in the world to have, because they're young. So they'll have 2 good games and then they'll have a couple of bad games. They won't have the consistency. But there are certain elements in that fan base who haven't got the patience and will expect them to be good every game. And that can damage a young player. So you need, yes, I want those 5 or 6 young players in the first team squad this year. Absolutely. But I want a core of experienced players to help them along and help them integrate into the first team. And, Jamaru Collins, and if Perry NG was there, would be perfect to get Conte in there and for Conte to learn, just like Ramsey is perfect for Colwell to learn from. Joel Colwell needs to bulk up a bit, but he also needs to be given opportunities off the bench, 10 minutes here and there. Ashford, I think, is probably ahead of like some of the others because he's had that bit more game time. But same as him, if he starts every game and then he has a couple of bad games and the fans are moaning and groaning when he loses the ball, or suddenly you'll find he won't be as direct and he'll cut back and he'll just pass it back to the fullback, because that's when you need him to be brave. But you also need the experienced footballers to be the core of the squad. If you look back to obviously one of the most famous young group of players coming through in the class of 92, like, of course, it was almost, and it still is, almost unheard of for that many young players to come through at the same time. But you know who they had with them? They had tried and tested international footballers who helped them come into the side and help them learn on the job. So what Cardiff have to do is they have to be very clever. And because we haven't got much money, we all know this. So we have to be clever with our recruitment. And this is what is frustrating to you, to me. Like, there's a list of free transfers, mate. I could easily go and get that list now, pick out 5 and say they will all improve our squad, whether it's as a backup or a first team player. But we cannot touch them because we do not have anyone at the football club now who can do it. So it's tricky, mate. Isn't it?
It is tricky. I agree with. Go on.
No, go on. You
No,
go
I was
on,
going to say,
mate.
Simon, on the back of what you said there, I think when you look at certain players, and I go back to Aaron Ramsey when he made his debut for City, he was technically on a different planet to anyone on that pitch on his debut. What I'm saying is, if you're exceptional, you're going to shine straight away. Now, young players are always different. Ernie's a good example. Like I said to you, he started playing for us. He wasn't really doing much. He had a couple of games here and there. He went on loan to Morton, and it really made him grow up. He says that himself. Came back a man. And I think some of these players, like Ruben Colwell is been at the City long enough now to be a first team player. Okay.
Yeah.
His brother, I agree with you. I think he should go on loan.
Yeah.
I think that Conte should be back up, right back. I know Giles is highly rated. I don't disagree with him going on loan. Kean Ashford, we shouldn't put, he scored a goal and he was over the moon, But again, I just think what I'm saying is a lot of fans will look at players and you can sort of tell whether they're going to need a bit of development. It's going to take time, or they're natural. They are a class above, and you're going to play them all the time. Those are the players who are not going to get criticised by home fans. I mean, City fans won't criticise young players in general, okay? Because you've got to get. But there comes a point where you've played 15 games and we're third from bottom, and the left back, for example, Bagan, has lost the ball, and we conceded in the last minute. It's gonna mount up. It's gonna rank. The pressure's gonna really get to these young lads. Okay, so I'm saying there's certain players who, like Ruben Colwell, who is good enough. I mean, I don't know if you remember, we played Southampton in one of the last games of the season home, and Russell Martin, right? As much as I don't like him because he's next Jack, actually said that Colwell was the best player on the pitch.
Yeah.
And I think if Southampton hadn't gone up, they would have put a bid in for him, because when you've got managers like that saying, opposition managers saying like that, there's other people that are going to be interested. The Crystal Palaces of this world, who are going to nip in with a 3 million, 4 million bid, which I'm not saying, they get him, but that's what these clubs do. The Premier League clubs, they go out and get these players in. Next minute, they're going on loan somewhere, a top championship club. The value goes up to 10, 12, and they're selling them on. So, we are where we are. You're absolutely right. And I think there are core young players, Conte and Colwell, definitely, who I look at as, Conte, I might be delusional, but I actually thought I'd like to see him play from the start. I might be absolutely wrong. He is a young lad. But you do need an experience. You do need an experienced right back. I didn't like Romeo one iota. And I know I'm not talking about NG, because I still feel in the back of my end he's going to go. But let's just say he does go. Romeo, I didn't rate him. That was my view. And I just think Collins, before his injury, he was really fantastic. After his injury, it hasn't been as great, but he is a decent player. But I think, you're absolutely right. We're limited on finances. We've got to be clever in the market, but we're not on our own side. There's so many teams out there who've got to look at Keeper, for example, and they're going to think. I mean, I think I talked about it in my first podcast, Scott Twine, and a couple of fans came on and said he went to Bristol City, but he did go to Bristol City from Burnley. He's an attacking midfield player, and he did okay at Bristol City. Gone back to Burnley, got a couple of years left. Now, Burnley obviously have signed that Aaron Ramsey from Villa, who's worth about 15 million. He's under 21 player. Sensational. Twine's probably not going to play, because Burnley are going to be probably top 2 and top 3. They're not going to be messing around with players worth 15, 20 million. They're going to be a step ahead. That's the problem with the parachute payments. So someone like a Scott Twine, who is contracted to Burnley for another 2 years, might be someone we could get on loan. Bristol City are still interested in him, but that's the kind of player that I feel would actually enhance us, in terms of getting goals from the midfield, a different style. We talked about it so many times with the three defensive midfielders. It's just ridiculous. And if Wintle goes, I'd be fairly happy, because Wintle 18 months ago was worth 3-4 million quid. He's our best player.
I mean,
I don't know what's happened to him.
We sell so badly, though, mate. Like, that was what I was going to ask you, actually, as we look towards wrapping up. I wanted to ask you, look, I think we all would like Perry Ng to stay, but we all accept that the age he's at, the profile of player he is, the quality of player he is, that he is most likely going to leave Cardiff City this summer. We need money, and he probably deserves a crack at the Premier League, if I'm being honest. The interesting thing to me is, in my opinion, and if you look at the Championship Team of the Year, Perry Ng was in it ahead of Walker Peters. Now, I'm telling you now, if Southampton were to sell Walker Peters today and we sell Perry Ng, Southampton would sell him for probably nearly double what we'll sell Perry Ng for. Yet Perry Ng is kind of neck and neck with him for the best right back in the Championship. We sell badly, mate. How much do you think? So I'll ask you two questions, double barrel question. If it was if you were in charge of making a decision, what is the minimum that you would sell Perry Ng for? And what do you think we'll end up selling him for?
Well, I hate to disagree with you again, Si, because I feel like I disagree with you on purpose. But, I think that's what fans are all about. Everyone's got different opinions.
100%.
I don't say that I don't rate Perry Ng. He scored goals. He is a good player, right? My view is Walker Peters is on a different level. That's my view. I know your opinion's different. That's my view. Yeah. Is that Perry Ng, when he played centre-back, when I saw Perry Ng, I thought he was all right. And there's times at right back, and I'm not saying he's not a good player. I think he was, but that's just my view. I see him a lot, and that's my view. But I agree with you. We do undervalue our players, and 5 million quid for me would be the right fee. But obviously, I don't think we're going to get it. I think it wouldn't surprise me if it's 3 million quid with add-ons, unless we go, which will be, you might go Premier League, but he might go higher league Championship to a Leeds, because obviously Connor Roberts was there on loan. They needed cover. So a Perry Ng could end up at Leeds for 3 million quid, rides into 5 or 6 if they go up, which might not be bad business if it's a Leeds, but then
you frozen,
yeah, let's let's hope he stays, but I think a lot of fans think he's going to go.
Do me a favour, mate. Just go out and then come back in, just because your link's gone a bit weird. On that, yeah, so on Perry Ng, I'll just sort of add my 2 pence worth. I do slightly disagree with Pan. I think Perry Ng is an excellent right back. I think positionally, he's very good. He's very good defensively, physically. He's good on the ball. He gets up. He's good creatively. He's got a good cross on him. I think he was left a bit exposed at times by Josh Bowler. And that's not to say that Perry Ng is the perfect right back by any means. But what I would say is that I do think he's as good as Walker Peters, although I do rate Walker Peters as well. I think he's, like I said, he's good defensively, he's good on the ball, he's good positionally, he's got a good mentality, he's got a good attitude. On the Romeo thing, mate, Romeo for me, for Cardiff, the only way I'd be keeping him is if he is a squad player, because he can utilise a couple of different positions off the bench. But to be honest with you, between kind of stuff I've heard and stuff that I've read in the news and things like that, Callum Robinson and Romeo, the club need to shake hands with them, say thank you for your service, goodbye. Because and that kind of goes for any player who's not on board with Bullet as a manager. But but those two in particular seem to have had a falling out with the manager and been disciplined. You have to have a dressing room that's united, and you have to have a dressing room that's all pulling in the right direction. And one, I don't want to say bad eggs, because I don't necessarily think that their issues are because they've got a bad attitude in terms of, I'm the big I am sort of thing. I think it's more they're frustrated at the lack of first team opportunities, but that in itself creates problems in the dressing room. So like I said, I would shake hands with both of them and say thank you. And I'd be very happy if Conte is one of our right back options. Cody Dramer and Collins are the left back options. I'm happy with that as the full back options. You obviously need a right back to replace NG. We need a centre back because obviously Nat Phillips has gone back to Liverpool. I think it's very unlikely that Phillips comes back on loan, because I think there'll be other clubs probably higher up the tier which will be looking at, I hope we can get him in. But equally, if I had a choice between getting Nat Phillips back on loan or Kipri on a free, I would rather Kipri anyway. But I think it might have been you who said that Premier League clubs will probably be sniffing around Kipri. I think is the most important thing for Cardiff for me. We do need to, we need a fullback, we need a centre back. We have to make a decision on Mark Turnbull. Is he playing number 8? If he's playing alongside Siopis,
David Turnbull.
Sorry. They have to. David Turnbull. Yeah, sorry. I always think back to the keeper, Mark. To me, you have to make a decision on Turnbull, because he's not a number 10. He cannot play with his back to goal. I think you lose everything which he's good at. So you either say, right, he's an option to play alongside Siopis, or he's not. And if he's not, then you need to sign a number 8. And so my only worry when you say about Scott Twine is, what I don't think we need is a number 10. What I think we need is a deep lying playmaker, or someone who's a bit box to box, who can kind of create from deep and dictate the play of the game. So I'm not sure about that, but I do. What I do like about Scott Twine is he can play a number of positions. So he can also play out wide. He can play up front, and those players are very, very useful. At the end of the day, you need those types of players. But what we need is we need a striker. But I agree with you. We don't necessarily. We'd all prefer a striker who can get us 15, 20 goals. But if we get a striker who is exceptional at link-up play, and then we've got really good wingers and Ruben Colwell in number 10 or Ramsey in number 10 with a deep line playmaker who's very good, I think that we can still achieve the goals that we want. But obviously a striker who scores 15, 20 goals is going to set you on the way to doing that. So it's like we just got to get the right players in for the system, for the team. And this is where you need football people making those decisions. We go back to the same thing. Do the people on that transfer committee understand the type of or the profile of player that we should be looking at? The age, the skill set, the abilities, the mentality, all these things that should go into picking a player and then signing a player, all the things you should check. Do those people have the knowledge to do that? I would argue maybe not. And that's not a knock on them, because, if you ask me questions about business and stuff, I wouldn't know. Like some people, and this is what the football club needs to get experts in football dealing with football, and then let the businessmen deal with the business. That's what you do. You let the scouts do the scouting, the analysts do the analysts, and coaches coach. And it seems simple.
I know we're going to wrap up now, Simon. I want to say quickly a good example: Clark Harris for Peterborough, 100 goals in the last 5 years for clubs like Bristol Rovers and Peterborough. Okay, League One. He's gone on a free transfer. Do you know where he's gone? Rotherham.
Where did he go? Oh, Jesus.
Rotherham. So what I'm saying is, that's a guy who's a goal scorer on a free. He could be given the chance. If we sign Clark Harris, some of the fans thought, because we don't know, but he's gone to Rotherham. And I don't get it. I might be wrong again about this, like League One players scoring goals, on a regular basis. It's a gamble, but he's, we failed so many times. It's like there are guys in there. Will Evans of Newport, league. I mean, he's fantastic. I thought he was a really good player. I know he's come from nowhere. Aaron Collins, another Welsh lad at Bolton, banged in quite a few goals. But that's the problem, is that when Mark Harris played for City, he was decent. He wasn't a goal scorer who's going to get you 50. Gone to Oxford, nearly got 20 goals as a League One player. Now, when we know that Mark Harris played for us and was okay, but suddenly is ripping it up in League One, that's the issue, isn't it? There must be these like rough diamonds in League One and Two who could score. So yeah, that's just something to think about. But yeah, there's a lot going on site, and a lot to talk about in the next few weeks, I hope.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And look, it's going to be really interesting. Maybe the club is going to hit us with like several announcements all at once. Going back very quickly to the thing we were talking about, the season tickets, and if they'd announced the manager like at the start of this week, like if they were a clever football club, mate, what they would do is they would announce the manager. They would get a couple of free transfers or pre-contracts signed up, announce the manager.
Like Cardiff.
Or whoever, and then 3 days later announce a free transfer. 3 days later, or like a week later, and kind of keep that momentum going because that's how you build excitement from a purely business point of view. If you want
why do we know that site, and probably 95% of fans, and not the people who should know? That's the crazy. That's how is it possible that we're saying that we're not being business people, and the people who are running the club can't see it, and that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother show, mate, isn't it? Like talking about that side of things. Pan, it's been really interesting talking to you, mate. I really enjoyed it. But maybe we should call it the Friday night argument. But that's all right.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
The Friday night fight night. But
yeah, it sounds good to me, isn't it?
Yeah, mate, it's good. At the end of the day, like I said to you earlier on, like at the end of the day, it's opinions. We've all got them. And sometimes they kind of go together. Sometimes you're going to disagree with people, but that's what brings healthy debate, healthy discussion. And ultimately, we all want the same thing. We all want Cardiff City to succeed and stop being a sleeping giant, because that's what Cardiff City is. It is a sleeping giant that is not being utilised to its full capacity, whether that's fans, that's the business side of it, the football side of it. It's just this massive thing that's waiting to take the right steps in the right direction. I think that we could take those steps this summer if we make the right moves. I don't buy into this thing where we're still 2 or 3 years off. I think in one summer we can be a lot better prepared to make a bit of a tilt at the playoffs. But it's getting the right people in, and it's being proactive, not reactive. That goes back to what I was saying the other day. We are very, very reactive instead of being proactive in what we do. Right. So Pan, we'll have another video from you next week, hopefully. And me and you will be back next Friday for another fight night. And if anyone's got any questions and stuff like that for or subjects for the Friday night show, then obviously get in contact with us, because or just drop them in the comments or emails, whatever, and we can bring them up, because obviously at the moment we're in the pre-season and there's little to no news going on. Tomorrow night should be a special edition of the Flower Hour on the road, depending on if they're able to record, because they're out. I don't even know where they're on football tour, basically. So if they can't get a recording done, we'll have a new episode of Terry Phillips' History of Cardiff City, which is on the 1993 promotion at Scunthorpe, which is it's a really interesting episode. So either way, you get some good stuff tomorrow. Sunday, I'll be back with the breakdown, where we'll have a look at some potential loan options for next season, which is going to be an interesting one. So if you've got any suggestions for that as well to make my list and my research, any players you'd like to see Cardiff loan, I know there's a few City fans who'd like to see Lewis Kumas come down here. So maybe I'll add him to my list, and there's a few others. I got my eyes on a left back from a Premier League club as well. So, but obviously Cody Dramer can play left or right as well. So yeah, lots to discuss, even if there's no news. Please do make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment, all that good stuff. Helps us out a lot. If you haven't got your tickets for Joe Ledley City Legends event presented by Ace Podcast Nation, then you can still do so. There is only a few left though. 6th of July, Splott Cons Club, Cardiff City, and Welsh legend Joe Ledley. Just £10 for tickets. It'll be another quality night. We've had Michael Chopra, Darren Pearce, Andy Campbell, and of course the most recently Willie Boland. And Joe Ledley is up next. Really looking forward to it. And we should be announcing another one soon as well. So get your tickets, details in the description below. Pan, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, enjoyed it, Si. Thanks very much.
Top man. We will see you soon.
Yeah.